The game just exposed himself as hip-hop's biggest hater, lie about Kendrick Lamar, siding with Drake, and turning his back on the entire West Coast. Here's why his jealousy has reached a new low. The game is showing some of the nastiest and most envious behavior we've seen from a rapper, because he's no longer the one leading the West Coast forward and has never reached the heights Kendrick Lamar has. He seems to want the whole movement to fail. He wants everything Kendrick has built to mean nothing. The game has fully embraced being a fallen name, someone who used to be West Coast hip-hop royalty, but now chooses to stand beside Drake rather than Kendrick Lamar and Dr. Dre. And as more conversations continue around the game lying about Kendrick and try and belittle him with fabricated stories, more voices are coming forward to shut those lies down. Even Mixed by Ali, the engineer Kendrick famously shouts out on Backseat Freestyle, and a key figure at Top Dog Entertainment, publicly stated that what the game said was a lie. That alone tells us everything we need to know. Digging deeper into what the game is attempting here exposes just how sad the situation truly is. The West Coast has long been one of the few major regions consistently contributing quality music, iconic moments, and strong leaders to hip-hop culture. Yet the game has seemingly turned against his own coast. The root of this bitterness clearly revolves around Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick was once the game's close friend back, when the game was a bigger artist. But Kendrick has now risen to a level the game can't even comprehend. Kendrick achieved this success while maintaining his integrity, which only makes the game angrier. That's why we're seeing the game support pro-Drake narratives. The exact narratives that hip-hop media figures and propaganda-driven commentators are using to tear Kendrick down and portray him as the bad guy, despite him being the only one doing anything great for the culture right now. This all stems from that same Big Boy interview, and right before the game addressed Kendrick, he spoke about the current state of hip-hop. Big Boy asked, "What do you feel the state of hip-hop is right now, Game?" The game responded, "It's trash." Yeah, I don't like it. What stands out isn't just a game saying hip-hop is trash, because to an extent, he's not wrong. A lot of what's out right now is pretty bad. What matters is the context. He frames himself as one of the faces of the West Coast, someone still holding the torch, one of the best rappers alive, and in his eyes, the best. Yet immediately after elevating himself as the West Coast ambassador, he dismisses the entire landscape of hip-hop as garbage. The contradiction exposes exactly where his resentment is aimed and why. Listen, I don't think the game is strategic enough to have intentionally tried to defame Kendrick or to give Drake more fuel for the nonsense he and his media puppets continue push. But when the game sits down and talks, the ideas he reveals through his rambling points and tangents make one thing clear. From an ideological standpoint, especially when it comes to supporting hip-hop and uplifting the region he's from, he is jealous and bitter about how the culture has evolved. He resents how the West Coast has embraced Kendrick as the only artist in their scene in the 21st century who is part of the Mount Rushmore and GOAT conversation, and not him. So when a game claims that the entire hip-hop landscape is trash right now, while at the same time ignoring that the West Coast has produced the biggest and best moments of this era, it highlights the difference between someone like him and someone like Ice Cube. Cube continues to praise Kendrick for carrying the lineage forward, while the game refuses to give Kendrick any flowers. Instead, he downplays Kendrick's entire run and feeds into the same narratives his biggest rival is pushing, narratives designed to manufacture a fake comeback and stir up outrage. When we look at how the game is behaving, actively trying to tear down his own coast and its success, what makes the situation truly sad is this. Rooting against Kendrick Lamar means rooting against the entire West Coast. It lumps the region in with all the low-quality trends and culture that Drake has helped normalize, calling all of rap trash, while speaking from the West Coast, where Kendrick Lamar has delivered one of the most dominant runs of all time in 2024 and 2025, is absurd. Kendrick has made history not just in terms of the beef with Drake and the massive numbers it did, but through real cultural moments. He became the first rapper to headline and perform a full Super Bowl halftime show, smashing records. He completed a stadium tour as the first rapper to lead an entire arena-focused effort. He created GNX, which elevated countless artists from the West Coast underground. Yet the game refuses to acknowledge any of that, or to highlight rising talents from his own region. Artists like Wally the Sensei, who gained real traction after appearing on Dodger Blue, and seemingly earned a major deal with Cactus Jack Records. Or someone like AZ Chike, who could benefit from Game's showing support, especially with the hype surrounding his upcoming album featuring Tyler, the Creator, another West Coast superstar. Tyler has released two massively successful albums this era, breaking records and contributing some of the most innovative and impactful hip-hop we've seen. His tours have been enormous, and right behind Kendrick, he's been one of the only bright spots in modern hip-hop, a true superstar proving what artistry really looks like. For the Game to lump Kendrick, Tyler, and the West Coast progressing with the same issues caused by Drake, Ice Spice, Lil Baby, and other shallow industry trends is not only irresponsible, it goes against everything he claims to care about. As a West Coast hip-hop fan, seeing how the torch has been carried, from NWA to the Game in the 2000s, and then to Kendrick in the 2010s, makes the Game's behavior feel like a betrayal of his own legacy. The Game wasn't just some washed-up rapper who always made bad music. There's a reason the torch was passed to him. He was a critical link between the 90s icons like Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, and Dr. Dre, and the era of Kendrick Lamar dominating the 2010s. And now, instead of standing proudly alongside that lineage, he has reduced himself to a clownish figure, disgracing the very legacy he once represented. And when you consider everything the Game has chosen to ignore, including the fact that the West Coast hosted one of the biggest music events not just in hip-hop, but in the entire industry, it makes his bitterness even more obvious. Kendrick Lamar's A Pop Out was a historic moment, bringing together Tyler, the Creator, countless West Coast artists, and many emerging Gen X rappers on one stage. That single night set off a domino effect that further exposed fragile egos and showed who truly represents the future and who has become a washed-up hater fighting irrelevance. Looking at the internal dynamics of the West Coast scene, that show made one thing clear. The region's momentum is driven by artists the Game has alienated himself from. His hater behavior not only kept him from being invited then, but as those artists continue thriving, proving they're genuine superstars, his absence looks even more embarrassing. Whether it's Kendrick, Tyler, or the rising performers who opened for DJ Head and built stronger names from that platform, their success represents everything the Game wishes he could take credit for, but can't. He isn't capable of leading this moment forward, and that truth eats at him. And when we go back to the conversation about him trying to belittle Kendrick, subtly speaking down on his name, it revealed exactly how the Game feels. At the core, it's simple. He is jealous. Kendrick is younger, newer to the Game, yet he surpassed the Game while staying true to himself. He never conformed to cheap industry trends, never chased clout, and certainly never needed to live the wild lifestyle the Game claims as a badge of honor. The Game cannot stand that someone who did everything differently ended up winning bigger than anyone. Seeing Kendrick become a superstar on his own terms has driven the Game to madness. It's pushed him to the point where he is willing to spread narratives that boost Drake and strengthen the lies used to tear Kendrick down, even if those narratives damage the West Coast and overshadow the rising artists who need support. But what truly revealed how deep his hatred runs was when Big Boy asked him to list his top 4 West Coast rappers. After attempting to include himself and being told he couldn't, the Game suddenly praised Dr. Dre. This is the same Dr. Dre he was publicly furious at for not including him in the 2022 Super Bowl halftime show. That anger spiraled into the Game making outrageous claims, like saying that Kanye West did more for his career than Dre ever did. That bitterness also let him take unnecessary shots at Eminem and Dre on his album Dear Ilo MDIC. Despite having some good songs, the album felt desperate and clout-chasing, a reflection of where the Game's headspace had been. Hungry for relevance, angry at the legacy he failed to maintain, and willing to burn bridges just to get people talking. It really pulled you out of the entire experience. Now, the Game has essentially walked back on his previous stance and is once again praising Dr. Dre. Yet when asked for his West Coast Mount Rushmore, without being prompted to include himself, he still put himself on the list alongside Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, and Dr. Dre, placing himself above Kendrick. While that lineup makes sense to an extent, since many people choose the pioneers I respect as a rite of passage, the real issue is how the Game consistently avoids acknowledging the present and future of the West Coast hip-hop scene. He ignores Kendrick Lamar's role in pushing the region forward, Gen X's influence, the monumental moments Kendrick has created, and the momentum gained by the artist connected to GNX. To dismiss all of that, while now praising the same man he was dissing just a few years ago, says everything. I don't believe the game is intentionally plotting any of this. But through these interviews, he continues to reveal the kind of person he really is and what he truly thinks, talking himself into situations that make him look bad. For anyone still doubting the legitimacy of the tension between him and Kendrick, or questioning whether Kendrick has fully recognized who the game has become, a bitter, washed-up hater he wants absolutely nothing to do with, the answer is clear. As heard on Man of the Garden from GNX, Kendrick just wants to keep people like that far away from him. When you compare the game's behavior to that of true hip-hop legends who still maintain an active presence in the genre, the contrast is striking. Take someone like Nas. Yes, he calls out the flaws in hip-hop, the corruption, the artists who are here for the wrong reasons, but he never hesitates to shine a light on the right people. He continues to highlight those who carry the mantle and spirit of what made him fall in love with hip-hop in the first place. A perfect example is Nas's track, Run It Back, from the incredible Cabin in the Sky album, where he uses his legendary status and perspective to uplift the artist doing things the right way, shouting out Kendrick Lamar, Doy, and even non-hip-hop artists like SZA, Leon Thomas, and Shabuzi. And look at how Nas spoke about Kendrick before the Super Bowl, compared to how Kendrick returned that respect on whacked-out murals, and again on the GNX track, Man of the Garden. Now compare that mutual support to the energy coming from other icons like Lil Wayne and Snoop Dogg. While Snoop is a conversation for another day, the attitudes both he and Wayne have put out, they're clearly aligned with talking points that go directly against everything Kendrick has been fighting for. When you look at how all of this is unfolded, it becomes clear why Kendrick Lamar only truly trusts Nas, Pusha T, and Jay-Z among the rap legends. Kendrick understands which rappers genuinely love hip-hop, the ones who want to push the culture forward and support anyone contributing to that mission. And he also recognizes the artists who only want to see the culture thrive if they're the ones leading the charge. With the game, Kendrick has clearly seen enough. While it's unfortunate to witness the game's downfall reach this low point, this situation also reinforces exactly why Kendrick is so selective about the people he supports and chooses to work with. When you're the king of the genre, no matter what the game wants to believe, these are the boundaries you have to set. Now, with the game's new project originally scheduled for November 28th but pushed to December 5th, I hope he actually has something worthwhile to say. Because if he insists on being this much of a hater, the least he can do is back it up with great music. Don't put out all of this negativity and then deliver weak records. So that's everything for today. Let me know what you think about the game proving himself to be one of the most bitter, resentful figures on the West Coast when it comes to Kendrick Lamar's success and rise to superstardom. And share your thoughts on the responsibility he once had, as the face of the generation right before Kendrick, to keep supporting the culture and showing love for the craft. Instead, he's doing the complete opposite. If you made it to this point in the video, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps a ton, and I truly appreciate the support. And if you want to see how Kendrick Lamar made it crystal clear that he wants nothing to do with the game, not just for these reasons, but for the awful lies he spread on his name, definitely check out the suggested video. You won't want to miss it.